My dying sister asked my fiancé to pretend to love her until the end, and my mother called it a small favor. When I tried to tell her it wasn't small, she sighed and said, "Your relationship will have years to recover. Judy has weeks." I stared at her in disbelief. That was 3 weeks ago. Now I'm not sure if I even have a mother left. My fiancé Daniel and I were deeply in love. We had been together 2 years, lived in a cozy rental with a leaky bathroom light, and were planning a wedding this fall. We weren't planning on having it so soon, but for the sake of my sister Judy, we needed to. She'd been sick on and off since the end of high school. First it was leukemia, then remission, then it came back with a vengeance. The kind of story where you brace yourself for the ending long before anyone says the words. Judy had this softness about her. People always said she was too sweet for this world. I used to hate that, like it meant she was already halfway gone. When Daniel and I got engaged, we invited the whole family over for dinner. I made a roast that dried out a little and Judy laughed and said it was still better than hospital food. She wore this blue head wrap that brought out the color in her eyes. For a moment, I let myself believe we could have a normal night. Then she collapsed in the middle of dessert. The hospital gave us the news. The cancer had spread to her lungs and liver. They told us months at first, but you could see it on the doctor's face. It wasn't going to be months. We put everything on hold. The wedding, the apartment search, everything became about Judy. She moved in with me and Daniel so we could take care of her full time. It felt like the right thing. It was the right thing, but something started to feel wrong. Judy began asking Daniel to do little things. Could he bring her tea? Could he help her adjust the blankets? Could he go on a short walk with her when she couldn't sleep? At first it felt innocent. She was dying. Of course we'd go above and beyond, but after a while it stopped feeling like caretaking. She'd smile when he walked into the room in this way I hadn't seen before. She laughed too long at his jokes. She clung to his arm when they walked even though she never used to. I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was being sensitive. Then one night I saw her sketchbook open on the couch. Judy loved to draw. She never showed anyone her art, but there were pages and pages of Daniel. Not just recent ones. Some looked old. Him laughing. Him sitting at the dinner table. Him in a hoodie from a year ago. Dozens of pages. I didn't say anything. Not then. I just stared at it and felt something in me pull tight. Later that week, our mom, Margaret, pulled Daniel aside in the kitchen. I don't know exactly what she said. I just remember her voice was soft and her eyes didn't blink. She said something like, "If you can ease her pain, even a little, wouldn't it be worth it?" Daniel got quiet after that. He'd stare at Judy when she was sleeping. His hands would shake sometimes. He stopped making eye contact with me as much. Then the doctors told us it wasn't months. It was weeks, maybe less. That night, Judy asked to talk to both of us. She was in her robe. Her voice was barely there. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. She said she had one wish, just one, and she knew it was selfish. She said she'd been in love with Daniel for years. She said she never planned to tell anyone, but now, with time running out, she wanted to ask. She asked Daniel if he would pretend, just for a little while, just until the end. She said she wanted to feel what it was like to be in love and have that love returned, even if it wasn't real, even if it was just pretend. She looked at me when she said it, her eyes filled with tears. I think she expected me to say it was okay, to give her that, because she was dying, because she was my sister. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, frozen. My heart was thudding in my ears and all I could think was, how dare you? Daniel didn't say anything either. He looked like someone had ripped the floor out from under him. His hands were balled into fists at his sides. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me, but he said nothing. That night he left the house and didn't come back for hours. When he finally did, he said he needed space. He slept on the couch. That was 2 days ago and we've barely spoken since. My mom called yesterday asking how things were going. I couldn't bring myself to tell her what Judy had asked. Instead, I just said we were managing. She told me Judy didn't have much time left and that we should make her last days special. The way she said it made me wonder if she knew about Judy's request, if maybe she had encouraged it during that kitchen conversation. This morning, I woke up to find Daniel making breakfast for Judy. They were laughing about something, and they both got quiet when I walked in. Daniel couldn't look me in the eye. Judy gave me this sad smile that made my stomach turn. I don't know what happened after I left last night. I don't know what decision Daniel made. I'm sitting in my car right now in the parking lot of a coffee shop, trying to figure out what to do. My sister is dying, my fiancé is acting strange, and I'm stuck in the middle of the most impossible situation I could have ever imagined. Am I wrong for not wanting to share my fiancé with my dying sister, even if it's just pretend? Am I a terrible person for feeling betrayed by both of them? I don't know what to do next. I don't know if my relationship can survive this, or if I even want it to. The weight of this decision feels unbearable, crushing me a little more with each passing hour. Every time my phone lights up, I'm afraid it's news about Judy, or a message from Daniel explaining his choice. I drove around for hours after leaving that coffee shop. I couldn't go home. Not yet. I needed to clear my head, but every time I thought I was getting some clarity, my mind would circle back to Judy's request and the look on Daniel's face. I ended up at this little park where Daniel and I had our third date. We'd brought sandwiches and sat on a bench watching dogs chase frisbees. It felt like a lifetime ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "Where are you? I'm worried." I didn't respond. Another buzz. "We need to talk. Please come home." I turned my phone off and just sat there until the sun started to set. When I finally got home, the apartment was quiet. I found Daniel sitting alone in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee that had probably gone cold hours ago. Judy's door was closed. He looked up when I walked in, his eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying. "I told her no," he said before I could speak. "I can't do what she's asking. I won't." The relief that flooded through me was so intense I had to grab the counter to steady myself, but it was quickly followed by guilt. My sister was dying, and I was relieved that my fiancé wouldn't pretend to love her. "How did she take it?" I asked. Daniel ran his hands through his hair. "Not well. Your mom called right after. She's coming over tomorrow to help with the situation." I felt a surge of anger toward my mother. She'd always favored Judy, especially after the diagnosis. It was understandable in some ways. Judy needed more attention because of her illness, but this crossed a line. "I'm sorry," Daniel said. "I should have shut this down immediately. I was shocked. I never knew she felt that way about me. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Part of me wanted to ask if he'd ever given her reason to think he might return those feelings, but I pushed that thought away. That wasn't fair to Daniel. This wasn't his fault. We slept in the same bed that night, but with our backs to each other. The space between us felt vast. The next morning, my mom arrived early. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she walked in without knocking. She had a key for emergencies, but this was the first time she'd used it without calling first. "We need to talk," she said, her voice low so it wouldn't carry to the bedrooms. "About Judy's request." I tensed. "There's nothing to talk about." Daniel already told her no. My mom's face hardened. "Do you have any idea what she's going through? The pain she's in? The fear? If this small thing could give her some comfort in her final days?" "Small thing?" I interrupted, trying to keep my voice down. "You think asking my fiancé to pretend to be in love with her is a small thing?" "It's pretend," my mom insisted. "It's not real, and it would mean everything to her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And what about what it would do to me? To Daniel? To our relationship?" My mom sighed like I was being difficult. "Your relationship will have years to recover. Judy has weeks, maybe days." Before I could respond, Daniel walked into the kitchen. He'd obviously heard us talking. My mom turned to him with this pleading look that made my stomach turn. "Daniel," she said, "I know this is an unusual request, but please consider what it would mean to Judy." Daniel looked at me, then back at my mom. "I'm sorry, Barbara. I care about Judy deeply, but I can't do what she's asking. It wouldn't be fair to anyone, including Judy." My mom's expression changed. The pleading look was replaced with something colder. "I see. Well, I need to check on Judy." She brushed past us toward the spare room. Daniel reached for my hand. I meant what I said. "I won't do it." I squeezed his hand, grateful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Over the next few days, things got increasingly tense. Judy barely spoke to either of us. She stayed in her room most of the time, only coming out for meals or when the home health nurse visited. My mom came by every day, often bringing Judy's favorite foods or new pajamas, little comforts for her final days. I tried to spend time with Judy, to show her I still loved her despite everything. I'd sit with her while she watched TV or help her to the bathroom when she needed it. But there was this wall between us now. Every time I looked at her, I saw the sister who had asked for the unthinkable. About a week after Judy's request, I came home from grocery shopping to find Daniel sitting on the couch with Judy. They were looking at old family photos, and Judy was laughing at something he said. It looked innocent enough, but my stomach knotted anyway. Daniel jumped up when he saw me, looking guilty. "I was just keeping her company," he explained later when we were alone. "She seemed so sad today." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I believed him, but I couldn't help wondering if this was how it would start. Small moments of kindness that would gradually blur into something else. The next day, I overheard my mom and Judy talking in her room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but our apartment has thin walls. "He's being stubborn," my mom was saying, "but he'll come around. We just need to help him see how important this is." "It's not going to happen, Mom," Judy replied, her voice weak but determined. "I shouldn't have asked. It was selfish." "It's not selfish to want to experience love before you die," my mom insisted, "especially when it would be so easy for him to give you that." I walked away, my hands shaking. Easy? None of this was easy. That night, I confronted my mom as she was leaving. Daniel was helping Judy get ready for bed, so we had a moment alone. "You need to stop," I told her. "Stop pushing this. Stop making Daniel feel guilty. Stop acting like what Judy asked for is reasonable." My mom looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. "You've always had everything, Olivia. Good health, good grades, a fiancé who adores you. Judy has had nothing but pain and hospitals. Is it really so much to ask that you share a little of your happiness with her?" Her words hit me like a slap. "Share my happiness? You mean share my fiancé? Do you even hear yourself?" My mom grabbed her purse. "You've always been selfish, even as a child. I had hoped you'd grown out of it." She left before I could respond, the door closing firmly behind her. I stood there stunned. Had I always been selfish? Was I being selfish now? The doubt crept in, poisonous and persistent. The next morning, I woke up to find Daniel's side of the bed empty. It was early, not even 7 a.m. I found him in the kitchen, making tea. "Couldn't sleep," he explained. "Judy had a rough night. I heard her crying around 4 a.m. and checked on her." I nodded, trying to ignore the jealousy that flared. Of course he should check on her if she was crying. That was normal, human decency. "Your mom called," he added, not meeting my eyes. "The doctor says Judy's declining faster than they expected. They're adjusting her pain medication." My heart sank. Despite everything, I wasn't ready to lose my sister. "How long?" I asked. Daniel shrugged helplessly. "Days, maybe. Your mom wants to talk to us about hospice options." The next few days passed in a blur of medical equipment deliveries, visits from the hospice nurse, and my mom practically moving in. Judy was in constant pain now, only really comfortable when heavily medicated. The hospice nurse showed us how to administer the morphine, explaining that at this stage, comfort was the priority. Through it all, Daniel was amazing. He helped move Judy to the living room where we set up a hospital bed so she wouldn't be isolated in the spare room. He learned how to change her IV bags and check her oxygen levels. He played her favorite music and read to her when she was too tired to hold a book. I tried to be there too, but it was hard. Not just because of Judy's request, but because watching my vibrant, artistic sister fade away was breaking my heart. Sometimes I'd have to step outside just to breathe, to escape the smell of sickness that had taken over our home. One afternoon, I came back from one of these breaks to find Daniel sitting beside Judy's bed, holding her hand. She was asleep, her breathing shallow. He was just watching her, this expression on his face I couldn't read. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. He startled, like he'd been lost in thought. "Yeah, just making sure she's comfortable. I nodded and went to the kitchen to start dinner. As I was chopping vegetables, I heard Judy call for Daniel. Not for me, for him, again. I put down the knife and walked to the doorway of the living room. Judy was awake now, asking Daniel if he would help her sit up. He adjusted her pillows with gentle hands, asking if she was comfortable, if she needed anything else. Just stay with me a while, she said, her voice barely audible. Please. Daniel glanced at me, caught in the doorway. I gave him a small nod and went back to the kitchen, my eyes burning with unshed tears. That night, after Judy was asleep and my mom had gone home, Daniel and I sat on our tiny balcony with glasses of wine. We hadn't had a moment alone in days. I'm sorry, he said suddenly. I know this is hard on you in ways it isn't for me. I took a sip of wine. You've been amazing with her. I don't think I could have handled all this without you. He reached for my hand. I need you to know something. I've never had feelings for Judy. Not once. Not ever. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear those words until he said them. I know, I said. I trust you. But, he prompted, sensing my hesitation. I sighed. But I'm afraid you're going to give in, that my mom will wear you down, or that seeing Judy suffer will make you think that pretending is the kind thing to do. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. I won't lie. I've thought about it. Not because I want to, but because I hate seeing her in pain. But I won't do it. It would be wrong. For her, for me, for us. I leaned my head on his shoulder, relieved but still uneasy. Thank you. The next morning, I woke up to raised voices. My mom and Daniel were arguing in the kitchen. I got up quickly and found them standing on opposite sides of the counter, both looking angry. What's going on? I asked. My mom turned to me. Daniel won't let me take Judy to our house. I think she'd be more comfortable there, with me taking care of her full time. Daniel shook his head. The hospice nurse said moving her now would be dangerous. She's too fragile. I looked between them. When did this come up? Why didn't anyone talk to me about it? I tried to call you yesterday, my mom said. You didn't answer. That was true. I'd been at a coffee shop working on a deadline, and I'd silenced my phone. Moving her seems risky, I said carefully. The hospice team is set up here now. My mom's expression hardened. I see. You two have made your decision then. She grabbed her purse. I need some air. I'll be back later to check on Judy. After she left, Daniel explained that my mom had shown up at 6 a.m. with a plan to move Judy that day. He'd called the hospice nurse, who strongly advised against it. I think your mom is trying to get Judy away from us, he said, or at least away from me. I had the same thought. If Judy was at my parents' house, my mom would have total control over who saw her and when. I didn't put it past her to try to keep Daniel away. Later that day, the hospice nurse confirmed what Daniel had said. Moving Judy would be risky and unnecessary. She was receiving excellent care where she was. My mom was frustrated but couldn't argue with the medical advice. That night, Judy took a turn for the worse. Her breathing became more labored and she developed a fever. The hospice nurse came and adjusted her medication, but warned us that this was often how the final decline began. Days, she told us quietly, maybe less. My mom refused to leave after that. She set up camp in our living room, sleeping on an air mattress next to Judy's hospital bed. Daniel and I took shifts too, making sure someone was always awake and watching over Judy. During one of my shifts, around 3 a.m., Judy woke up. She seemed more lucid than she had been in days, her eyes clear as they found mine in the dim light. I'm sorry, she whispered, for what I asked. It was wrong. I took her hand, so thin now I could feel every bone. It's okay, I said, even though it wasn't. I understand. She shook her head slightly. No, you don't. I've loved him since the day you brought him home. I tried not to. I really tried. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me was angry that she was bringing this up again, but another part recognized that she was trying to make amends in her own way. I just wanted to know what it felt like, she continued, her voice fading. To be loved by someone like him. You are loved, I told her, squeezing her hand. By me, by mom and dad, by your friends. She gave me a sad smile. Not the same. She drifted back to sleep after that, and I sat there holding her hand, tears streaming down my face. I was angry and heartbroken and exhausted all at once. The next morning, I pulled Daniel aside and told him about my conversation with Judy. He listened quietly, his face grave. What do you want to do? He asked when I finished. I shook my head. I don't know. Part of me thinks we should just get through these last days however we can, but another part is still hurt. He finished for me, and that's okay. You're allowed to be hurt by this. Before we could talk more, my mom called us into the living room. Judy was awake and asking for both of us. When we entered, my mom gave us a look I couldn't interpret and then stepped out, saying she needed to make some calls. Judy was propped up on her pillows, looking ghostly pale. I need to tell you both something, she said, her voice barely audible. Daniel and I sat on either side of her bed, waiting. Mom's been pushing me to ask again, she said. To convince you, Daniel, but I won't. It was wrong the first time, and it would be wrong now. I glanced at Daniel, who looked as surprised as I felt. She means well, Judy continued. She can't bear to see me disappointed. She never could. I thought about all the times my mom had given in to Judy's wishes over the years, the extra desserts, the later curfews, the expensive art supplies we couldn't really afford. I'd always chalked it up to Judy being sick, but maybe it went deeper than that. I don't want to leave with this between us, Judy said, looking at me. You're my sister. I love you. What I asked for, it was selfish and wrong. Can you forgive me? The sincerity in her eyes broke something in me. I leaned forward and hugged her carefully, mindful of her frailty. Of course I forgive you, I whispered. I love you too. When I pulled back, she turned to Daniel. And you. Thank you for being kind to me, even after what I asked. You're a good man. My sister is lucky. Daniel took her hand. We're both lucky to have you in our lives, Judy. She smiled at that, a real smile that reminded me of the Judy from before the cancer, before all of this. Then she closed her eyes, suddenly exhausted by the conversation. We left her to rest, stepping into the kitchen where my mom was just hanging up the phone. She looked between us, suspicious. What did she say to you? She asked. I exchanged a glance with Daniel. She apologized. I said simply, for her request. My mom's face fell. She shouldn't have to apologize for wanting a little happiness at the end of her life. Mom, I said firmly, this has to stop. Judy herself realizes her request was inappropriate. Why can't you? My mom's eyes filled with tears. Because I can't give her more time. I can't make her healthy. I can't save her. So I want to give her whatever else I can. Whatever might make these last days easier. I understood then. This wasn't really about Daniel or me or even Judy's feelings for him. This was about my mom's desperation to do something, anything, in the face of her daughter's imminent death. We're all doing our best, I told her, softening my tone. But asking Daniel to pretend to love Judy isn't the answer. It would hurt all of us in the end, including Judy. My mom didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. Progress, I supposed. The next 2 days were a blur of hospice visits, medication schedules, and family members stopping by to say their goodbyes. Judy slept most of the time now, occasionally waking up confused or in pain. The hospice nurse increased her morphine, explaining that comfort was the priority now. My dad came and sat with her for hours, holding her hand and telling her stories from her childhood. Friends from her art class brought a collage they'd made of her work. My aunt flew in from Seattle and spent an afternoon showing Judy photos of her new baby, Judy's cousin she'd never get to meet. Through it all, Daniel was a steady presence. He helped with medications, made sure everyone had food and drinks, and gave me breaks when I needed them. He was kind to Judy without crossing any lines, treating her with the compassion of a friend, not a lover. My mom watched all of this with sad eyes, but didn't bring up Judy's request again. I caught her looking at Daniel sometimes with a mixture of gratitude and resentment, as if she couldn't decide whether to thank him for his kindness or blame him for not giving Judy what she wanted. On what would turn out to be Judy's last night, I was sitting with her while everyone else slept. She'd been unresponsive for most of the day, but around midnight she opened her eyes and looked right at me. Olivia, she whispered, I need to tell you something. I leaned closer. I'm here. What is it? The sketchbook, she said, her voice so faint I could barely hear her. The one with the drawings of Daniel. I'm sorry you saw that. I hadn't mentioned finding the sketchbook. I'd almost forgotten about it in the chaos of the past weeks. It's okay, I said. She shook her head slightly. No, it's not. I should have told you how I felt about him from the beginning, but I was afraid you'd stop bringing him around, and drawing him was the only way I could keep him. I felt a chill at her words. How long? I asked. How long have you felt this way about him? Since the first time you brought him to the hospital, she admitted. He was so kind. He didn't look at me with pity like most people do. He saw me as a person, not just a sick girl. I remembered that visit. It was early in our relationship, maybe 3 months in. Daniel had brought Judy a sketch pad and some new pencils after I mentioned her love of drawing. It was a thoughtful gesture, nothing more. I tried to stop, Judy continued. I really did. But then the cancer came back, and suddenly time was running out, and I wanted to know what it felt like. Just once. I took her hand. I understand, I said, and this time I meant it. Not that her request was okay, but that I understood the desperation behind it. Take care of Mom, she whispered. She's going to be lost without me. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I will. I promise. She closed her eyes then, drifting back to sleep. I sat with her for hours, holding her hand, watching her chest rise and fall with increasingly labored breaths. Daniel found me there in the morning, still holding Judy's hand. He brought me coffee and sat beside me, his presence a comfort I hadn't known I needed. How is she? He asked quietly. The same, I replied. But she woke up last night. We talked. He nodded, not pressing for details. Your mom's making breakfast. You should eat something. I shook my head. I don't want to leave her. I'll stay, he offered. Go eat. Take a shower. I'll call you if anything changes. Reluctantly, I agreed. As I stood to leave, I leaned down and kissed Judy's forehead. I love you, I whispered. I'll be right back. I showered quickly, the hot water washing away some of the exhaustion. When I came back to the living room, Daniel was sitting where I'd left him, holding Judy's hand. My mom was on the other side of the bed, stroking Judy's hair. Any change? I asked. They both shook their heads. I sat down next to Daniel, and we settled into the quiet vigil that had become our routine. Around noon, the hospice nurse came for her daily visit. She checked Judy's vitals and adjusted her medication. It won't be long now, she told us gently. Hours, maybe. She's not in any pain. My mom broke down at those words, sobbing into her hands. My dad, who had arrived that morning, put his arm around her shoulders. We all stayed by Judy's bed, talking quietly, sharing memories. Around 3 p.m., her breathing changed, becoming more shallow and irregular. The hospice nurse, who had stayed, explained this was part of the process. At 4:17 p.m., Judy took her last breath. It was peaceful, just like they say in movies. One moment she was there, and the next she wasn't. The hospice nurse confirmed what we already knew and gave us time alone with her. My mom was inconsolable, clinging to Judy's body and begging her to come back. My dad eventually managed to lead her to our bedroom to lie down. The hospice nurse made some calls, explaining the next steps in gentle, practiced tones. Daniel and I sat with Judy's body, neither of us speaking. I felt numb, like this was happening to someone else. Daniel held my hand, his presence anchoring me to reality. Later that night, after the funeral home had come and taken Judy's body, after my parents had gone home to start making arrangements, Daniel and I sat on our balcony with glasses of whiskey. I keep expecting to hear her call for me, I said, staring out at the night sky. To need something. Daniel nodded. Me too. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of the day pressing down on us. What happens now? Daniel asked eventually. With us, I mean. It was a fair question. The past weeks had put an enormous strain on our relationship. I don't know, I admitted. I love you. That hasn't changed, but so much else has. He took my hand. We don't have to figure it all out tonight or tomorrow. We have time. Time. The one thing Judy hadn't had. I felt guilty even thinking about my future when my sister would never have one. But life goes on, as they say, even when it feels impossible. One day at a time, I agreed, squeezing his hand. As we sat there under the stars, I thought about Judy's last words to me, about taking care of our mom, about understanding desperation, about time running out. I didn't know what the future held for Daniel and me, or how we would heal from this impossible situation, but I knew we would try. For Judy. For ourselves. One day at a time. The funeral was small, just like Judy would have wanted. We held it at this little chapel near our parents' house where we used to go for Christmas services as kids. Daniel stood beside me the whole time, his hand steady on my back whenever I felt like I might crumble. My mom was a mess, barely able to stand without my dad supporting her. I kept thinking about Judy's last request for me to take care of her, but I had no idea how to even start. After the service, everyone came back to my parents' house. People brought casseroles and desserts like they always do when someone dies. I found myself in the kitchen arranging food on plates while relatives and friends talked in hushed voices in the living room. Daniel came in to help me, and for a few minutes we worked in silence, falling into the rhythm we developed over the past 2 years. Your aunt keeps asking when we're rescheduling the wedding, he said quietly. I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. Our wedding. With everything that had happened, I'd completely forgotten about it. What did you tell her? That we hadn't discussed it yet. He paused. We haven't discussed a lot of things. He was right. Since Judy died 3 days ago, we'd been focused on funeral arrangements and helping my parents. We hadn't talked about us, about what happened, about where we go from here. Not now, I said, glancing toward the living room where my mom sat staring blankly at a wall. But soon. Daniel nodded and picked up a tray of sandwiches. As he headed back to the living room, my mom appeared in the doorway. She looked terrible, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red from crying. Can we talk? She asked, her voice hoarse. I nodded, my stomach immediately knotting up. We hadn't really spoken since Judy died, not about anything important. She'd been so lost in her grief that she'd barely acknowledged me. We stepped out onto the back porch, away from the murmur of conversation inside. My mom sat on the old swing my dad had installed when Judy and I were kids. I sat beside her, the chains creaking under our weight. I owe you an apology, she said after a long silence. I wasn't expecting that. I'd been bracing for more accusations, more guilt. What I asked of Daniel, what I encouraged Judy to ask. It was wrong. She stared down at her hands. I was desperate. I couldn't save her, couldn't give her more time. I thought maybe I could give her this one thing. I swallowed hard. I understand that you wanted to help her, but it wasn't fair to any of us. My mom nodded. I know that now. Grief makes you do crazy things. She looked up at me, her eyes filling with fresh tears. Can you forgive me? I thought about all the anger I'd felt toward her over the past weeks, the resentment, the hurt. But sitting there, seeing how broken she was, I couldn't hold on to it. Yes, I said. I forgive you. She reached for my hand, squeezing it tightly. Daniel's a good man. He was so kind to Judy, even after everything. You're lucky to have him. I know, I said quietly. Don't let what happened change things between you, she continued. Judy wouldn't want that. She told me before the end that she regretted asking, that she was afraid she'd ruined your relationship. I felt tears prick at my eyes. She didn't ruin anything. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure if it was true. Something had shifted between Daniel and me, a tiny fracture that I wasn't sure how to repair. My mom and I sat there for a while longer, not talking, just sharing the quiet. Eventually, my dad came looking for us, saying people were starting to leave. We went back inside, and I found Daniel talking to one of Judy's friends from art class. He smiled when he saw me, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. The next few days were a blur. We went back to our apartment, which felt strangely empty without Judy's hospital bed in the living room, without the constant presence of nurses and family members. The hospice company came and took away all the medical equipment. I packed up Judy's things from the spare room, carefully placing her sketchbooks in a box without opening them. I wasn't ready to see those drawings of Daniel again. Daniel went back to work, and I tried to focus on my graphic design projects, but I kept getting distracted. I'd find myself staring at my computer screen for minutes at a time, not really seeing anything. At night, Daniel and I slept on opposite sides of the bed, not touching. We were polite to each other, careful, like we were walking on eggshells. About a week after the funeral, I came home to find Daniel sitting at the kitchen table with a serious look on his face. My heart immediately started racing. This was it. He was going to tell me he couldn't do this anymore, that what Judy had asked had broken something between us that couldn't be fixed. We need to talk, he said, confirming my fears. I sat down across from him, bracing myself. Okay, he took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened, about Judy's request, about your mom's pressure, about how it all affected us. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I want you to know something, he continued. I never, not for 1 second, considered saying yes to Judy. Not because I didn't care about her, but because I love you. Only you. Relief flooded through me, but it was quickly followed by guilt. I believe you. I do. But sometimes I wonder, what? He prompted when I trailed off. If maybe you should have said yes, I admitted, the words painful to say out loud. If it would have given her some comfort in her final days. If I was selfish for not wanting you to. Daniel reached across the table and took my hands in his. Listen to me. What Judy asked for wasn't fair to any of us. Not to her, not to me, and especially not to you. Pretending to love her wouldn't have helped her. It would have been a lie, and lies don't bring comfort. Not real comfort. I felt tears spill down my cheeks. I miss her so much. Even after what she asked, even though I was angry with her, I miss her every day. Of course you do, Daniel said gently. She was your sister. You loved her. I keep thinking about what she said that last night, I told him. About how she'd been in love with you since the first time I brought you to the hospital. About how she tried to stop but couldn't. Daniel looked pained. I had no idea. I never thought of her as anything but your sister. I was kind to her because she was important to you, and because she was going through something terrible, not because I had feelings for her. I know that, I assured him. I never doubted you. I just I can't stop thinking about how lonely she must have been, how much pain she was in, not just physically, but emotionally. Daniel was quiet for a moment. I think that's why she asked, not because she thought I'd actually fall in love with her, but because she wanted to feel something other than pain, even if it was just pretend. His words hit me hard. I hadn't thought of it that way before. Maybe you're right, but that doesn't make what she asked okay, he added firmly. And it doesn't make your mom's pressure okay either. I nodded, wiping away tears. So where does this leave us? Daniel squeezed my hands. That's up to you. I love you. I want to marry you, but I understand if you need time, or if you're not sure anymore. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in weeks. This man who had stood by me through the hardest time in my life, who had been kind and compassionate to my dying sister without crossing the line she'd asked him to cross, who was sitting here now, giving me space to decide what I needed. I love you too, I said, and I still want to marry you, but maybe we should wait a bit longer, give ourselves time to heal from all of this. Daniel nodded, relief clear on his face. I think that's wise. We don't need to rush anything. That night, for the first time since Judy died, we slept in each other's arms. It wasn't perfect. The shadow of what had happened still hung over us, but it was a start. The next morning, I called my mom. We'd spoken briefly a few times since the funeral, but our conversations had been superficial, focused on practical matters. This time, I asked how she was really doing. Not great, she admitted. The house feels so empty without her. Your dad and I keep expecting to hear her voice. I know, I said. I feel the same way. There was a pause. How are you and Daniel? We're working through things, I told her. It's not easy, but we're trying. I'm glad, she said, her voice catching. Judy would want you to be happy. She told me that, near the end. She was worried she'd ruined things between you two. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. She didn't ruin anything. I did, though, my mom said quietly. I pushed too hard. I was so focused on giving Judy what she wanted that I didn't think about what it would do to you. To Daniel, I'm sorry. I know, Mom, and I forgive you. We all do. After we hung up, I sat on our tiny balcony, thinking about Judy, about her laugh, her talent for drawing, her quiet strength through years of illness. I thought about how she'd apologized at the end, how she'd recognized that what she'd asked was wrong, how she'd wanted us to forgive her. Daniel joined me after a while, handing me a cup of coffee. What are you thinking about? Judy, I said honestly, and forgiveness. He nodded, understanding. It's not a straight line, is it? Forgiveness. No, I agreed. It's messy and complicated, but I think it's necessary. For all of us. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the neighborhood come to life below us. An old man walking his dog, a woman jogging with headphones on. Normal life continuing, as it always does, even after loss. I was thinking, Daniel said after a while, maybe we could postpone the wedding until next fall. I looked at him, surprised. That's a whole year away. I know, but it would give us time. And, he hesitated. It would be after the anniversary of Judy's death. Maybe that would be better. I considered his suggestion. A year seemed like a long time to wait, but he was right. Getting married too soon after Judy's death would cast a shadow over the day, and we did need time to rebuild what had been damaged. Okay, I agreed. Next fall. Daniel smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. I'm not going anywhere. We have all the time in the world. His words reminded me of what Judy hadn't had, time, but instead of making me sad, it made me determined to use the time I did have wisely, to not waste it on anger or resentment. 2 weeks later, I found myself at my parents' house, helping my mom sort through Judy's things. It was painful work, deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to throw away. Each item held memories, some happy, some bittersweet. I found this, my mom said, handing me a sketchbook I hadn't seen before. It was in her bedside table. I think she'd want you to have it. I took it hesitantly, afraid of what I might find inside. More drawings of Daniel, more evidence of my sister's secret feelings. But when I opened it, I found something else entirely. Sketches of me laughing, me concentrating on my laptop, me and Daniel together, sitting on our couch. The last drawing was dated just a week before she died, me sitting by her hospital bed, holding her hand. She loved you so much, my mom said, watching me flip through the pages. Whatever happened at the end, whatever she asked for, that doesn't erase a lifetime of love. I closed the sketchbook, holding it tight against my chest. I know. That night, I showed the sketchbook to Daniel. He looked through it carefully, his expression soft. She was really talented. She was, I agreed. I wish I'd told her that more often. Daniel put his arm around me. She knew, just like she knew you loved her, even when you were angry with her. I leaned into him, grateful for his steady presence. Do you think we'll be okay, after everything? I do, he said without hesitation. It won't be easy. We'll have days when it all comes rushing back, but we'll get through it together. I believed him, not because I thought it would be simple or straightforward, but because I knew we both wanted to try. And sometimes, that's all you can do. Try your best, day by day, to move forward. 6 months after Judy's death, Daniel and I started planning our wedding again. We chose a small venue near a lake. Nothing fancy but beautiful in its simplicity. My mom helped with the arrangements, her way of making amends. She was doing better, finding her way through grief with the help of a support group and regular visits with friends. One evening, as Daniel and I were addressing invitations at our kitchen table, he paused and looked at me. Are you happy? He asked. I considered the question. Was I happy? Not in the uncomplicated way I'd been before Judy got sick, before her request, before her death. But there was a quieter kind of happiness now, a deeper appreciation for what we had. Yes, I said. Not perfectly, not all the time, but yes, I'm happy. He smiled, reaching for my hand. That's all I need to know. As I looked at him across the table, I thought about everything we'd been through, the impossible request, the strain on our relationship, hardship, the grief and anger and forgiveness. We'd survived it all, not unscathed, but still standing, still together. And in that moment, I knew we would be okay. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, and maybe it never would be completely, but because we'd learned to carry it together, to make space for it without letting it define us. Judy's request had nearly broken us, but in the end, it had also shown us the strength of what we had, the depth of our commitment to each other. And for that, despite everything, I was grateful.